ASUS Zenfone 10 is the best small phone for fans of compact handsets, but the ASUS Zenfone 10 could pull users away from Samsung and Google flagships with top quality performance and battery life. If you can forgive its more limited photography options and the shorter than average software support window, the Zenfone 10 is a top choice. The ASUS Zenfone 10 could easily have retained its status as one of the world's best small phones without really trying to upgrade anything from Zenfone 9. Fortunately for us, ASUS has made enough changes to make the new iteration as a worthwhile upgrade in its own right, while keeping it competitive with other bulkier phones. ASUS still corners the market when it comes to performance per square inch in a smartphone. The same goes for battery life too. Even if it's a shame that photography and software updates are weaker than key competitors from Samsung and Google. Still, our overall impression, as you will discover through viewing this ASUS Zenfone 10 review, is really positive, and we are confident this would be a fantastic purchase for any Android phone buyer, whether you are specifically after a small phone or not. ASUS' focus over the past few generations of Zenfone has been the phone's compact size, and the good news is that's not gone anywhere. This is still a 5.9-inch handset that's far smaller than any other equivalent Android phone you can buy today. New rings around the rear cameras and a different back panel texture help differentiate the Zenfone 10 from the outgoing model, but otherwise it's a bit tricky to tell the difference between the most recent Zenfones. The Zenfone 10 weighs just 6.0.2 ounce like 172 gram, which is a touch heavier and the Zenfone 9 but is still quite light overall. ASUS intends the phone to be completely usable when wielded one-handed, and the lightweight small frames makes this perfectly possible. As someone used to two-handing phones like the enormous iPhone 14 Pro Max, is genuinely enjoyable and productive to be able to operate the Zenfone 10 fully while my other hands are occupied, such as holding onto a handrail on the underground or sipping a coffee. Part of the Zenfone's featherweight mass comes from the biopolycarbonate plastic bag. Though the mention of plastic on a flagship phone may have you recoiling in horror, the Zenfone 10 doesn't feel cheap. Even if it's not as luxurious to handle as a glass-backed phone, in fact the plastic has allowed ASUS to give the back an extra grippy texture which offers a sense of security when it's in your hand. A 3.5mm headphone jack can still be found on the phone's top edge, a welcome sight on any handset now that the industry expects everyone to have moved to wireless headphones. Despite the big hole in the Zenfone's body, it still offers IP68 dust and water resistance. It makes you wonder why the other flagship phones can't offer us both, but ASUS apparently can. ASUS has been generous with the colors, offering Aurora Green, Midnight Black, Comet White, Starry Blue, and Eclipse Red versions of the Zenfone 10. The Zenfone 10 uses a small but well-appointed 5.9-inch AMOLED panel with a full HD resolution and a refresh rate that can reach 144Hz. This max value only works in certain games too, so most of the time you will see a 120Hz peak. That's still plenty smooth enough for scrolling around your apps, matching what Samsung offers with its S23 flagships and beating the 90Hz peak of the Pixel 7. Sadly, when it comes to brightness and colors, the Zenfone falls down a bit compared to its rivals. While the Galaxy S23 and Pixel 7 do have a large screen advantage, it's a shame to see the Zenfone 10's color accuracy and peak brightness were noticeably worse than its main competitors. At least the ASUS phone offers decent color gamut coverage. Here we find one of the less impressive parts of the Zenfone 10's overall kit. That's not to downplay the quality of the components. There's a 50MP main camera and a new 30MP ultra-wide camera and another new 32MP on the front for selfies. But you get a telephoto camera on the Galaxy S23, and Google offers some of the best photo processing technology on any phone with the Pixel 7. The Zenfone's value isn't to be found in its photo kit. Here are some photo samples, you can check it out. ASUS didn't skimp on the Zenfone 10's chipset. It's armed with Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with either 8 GB or 12 GB or 16 GB RAM depending on where you are buying it and how much you are willing to spend. At worst, then you are getting a roughly equivalent chipset to the Galaxy S23 Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy with the same amount of RAM or more money that you can even specs for the much more expensive Galaxy S23 Ultra. We see ASUS investment in the chip and RAM on board the Zenfone pay off in our benchmark results. The Zenfone 10 either beats or narrowly loses to the Galaxy S23, which uses less RAM but features the unique high-performance versions of the same Snapdragon chip. The Google Tensor G2 inside the Pixel 7 doesn't really compare to the other two phones, even if it offers other software benefits that these benchmarks don't measure. Storage options on the Zenfone 10 run from 128 GB through 256 GB and up to 512 GB, meaning you shouldn't have trouble fitting all your data onto the Zenfone no matter how much of a power user you are. Somehow there's a 4300 mAh of battery squeezed into the Zenfone 10's compact body. That's on the small side for flagship phones in general, but it's a lot of battery for a phone of this size. It still beats the 3900 mAh capacity of the Galaxy S23 and almost matches the 4355 mAh in the Pixel 7 despite the Zenfone being smaller than both of these handsets. It's hard to tell it's because of the oversized battery, its smaller display or weaker brightness, but the ASUS is miles ahead of both its rivals when it comes to surviving the hour battery test. It lasts more than 2 hours longer in default adaptive refresh rate mode than the S23 and more than 5 hours longer than the Pixel 7. Setting the phones to 60Hz mode doesn't change the podium. Charging still happens at a maximum of 30 watt, which unfortunately means it doesn't happen that fast, especially when compared to a device like OnePlus 11 and its 80 watt charging speed. A drained Zenfone 10 makes it to 54% full after 30 minutes plugged in, which isn't that speedy these days. Lucky for us, the Galaxy S23 charges only slightly quicker, filling to 55% in half an hour. The Zenfone 10 also gets one over on both the S23 and Pixel 7 by including a charger in the box. The 30 watt charging speed may be unchanged from the Zenfone 9, but new to the Zenfone 10 is support for 15 watt wireless charging. We didn't get the chance to test this, but ASUS claims it will take a sluggish 2 hours to fully charge the phone wirelessly. Nonetheless, it's convenient to have if you need to top up your phone without hunting for a cable. At first glance, the Zenfone 10's interface looks like a stock Android, but ASUS version of the OS has some unique touches. The power menu, volume controls, lock screen and quick settings all have a different look to them and are designed to give access to more options with fewer inputs than normal Android, which I can definitely get on board with. ZenTouch also returns, opening up additional shortcuts when you swipe on the fingerprint reading power button. My preferred ZenTouch shortcut opens and closes the notifications shade quick setting window, but you could alternatively use the feature to scroll up and down web pages or scrub through your YouTube videos. I also like the Zenfone 10's quick shot shortcut, which not only opens the camera app with a double press of the power button but takes a burst of shots as it does so, hopefully catches the action before it's over. Then there's the Edge tool, which while not as customizable as something like Samsung's Edge panels, still gives you a speedy way of accessing favorite apps and shortcuts with a swipe in from the side of the screen. ASUS is promising more for the future too. In a future update, Zenfone 10 will gain a semantic photo search tool as seen on iPhone and some other Android devices to make it easier to search for photos of particular subjects or containing specific text in your gallery. Sadly, all of these smartly thought out features are let down by ASUS update schedule. You only get 2 years of full Android software upgrades, although you at least get 4 years of security updates. That's poor compared to Samsung 4-year cycle of updates or Google's full 3-year policy. It's unclear how big the demand in these days for sub 6-inch phones, but I am more certain of the fact that Zenfone 10 has pretty effectively cornered it. It's hard to find anything comparable for a phone this size. The next smallest Android phone we'd recommended would be the 6.1-inch Google Pixel 7a or basic Samsung Galaxy S23 or perhaps the Galaxy Z Flip 4 since that foldable device can close up small when needed. But while these phones at least match the Zenfone in most areas, they are either more expensive, not as powerful, or not as power efficient unless you prioritize photo quality more than compactness. The Zenfone comes out on top against all of these devices. If you don't mind iPhones or older handsets, Apple still sells the iPhone 13 mini and even dinkier 5.4-inch handset, which should still beat the Zenfone on power, photo quality, and software updates. Through it will be 2 years old as of this fall. I know it can be hard to switch smartphone OSs too. So it if Android's the software for you, small phones are your preferences. That's little else would suit you better than the Zenfone 10.